You're listening to the Storied Coaching Podcast with Aaron J. Jacobs, episode number 91. This week, we're talking with Kim Rees on how to regulate your nervous system. Forward.
What if you could rewrite your current story? How would you spend your time? What would your career or business look like? What kind of life would you design? Welcome to Storied Coaching, the podcast for high-performing leaders that provides you with tools and insights for building a thriving business that fuels an amazing life on your terms. I'm Aaron J. Jacobs, and as a master coach and the CEO of OMH Creative and Storied Coaching, I've had the privilege and opportunity to learn what it takes to rewrite your story. It's never too late for a rewrite.
Well, everybody, welcome to the podcast this week. You already know who I am, but I'm very excited to not talk about who I am, but to introduce you to Kim Rees. And here is why. I had the opportunity to talk with her not that long ago. It was just a few months, right? We had connected before that in another situation when we were at a conference together and had some conversations there. But then you reached out to me and it rekindled this conversation that we had been having and my interest specifically in something that's part of coaching culture, but I often felt was the missing piece whenever I was doing my own self-coaching. And also when I was working with clients. And that was talking about the nervous system and the responses that our bodies can have that don't always fit inside the traditional. If anyone has worked with a coach like me, that's come from a background like I do, which is has to do with thought work and figuring out why you're getting the results you're getting right now, of working through what's your thought process, what emotions does that trigger in feelings, then what kind of actions get taken from those feelings, because that's what we do. We're emotional creatures. And then we get these results. And if we want to unspool that and either try to get different results in our life or just figure out why we're doing what we do, we'll use that a lot of times, that kind of thought process modeling. And what I call a story model. What is your story and what's the story you're telling yourself and why are you getting this specific result in your life? And is it what you want to do? And if not, here's how we can take steps to change it. But there always seemed to be this outlier that I couldn't make fit. It was like a puzzle piece that had no partner. And it would be where people were like, I feel this way, or I'm feeling this in my body, but I can't think of a thought it's specifically attached to. And they would be confused. And I would try to work with some of the tools that I had. But in the end, I'd be like, you know what? This isn't fitting in traditionally what would work using this kind of thought modeling, story modeling aspect. And when I started talking to you, I was like, oh, there's another dimension to this that I'm not accounting for. And that's why I wanted everyone that's listening to the podcast to have a chance to learn about the work that you do, because I feel like it is that missing piece of the puzzle. Kim, would you let us know a little bit more? I'll let you formally introduce yourself now. Let us know what you do and in more specific terms, how you coach and what you coach on.
Okay. Thanks, Aaron. It's so great to be here. I really appreciate this opportunity to share this with you and with all of your listeners, because it has been so impactful for me and for my clients. It's just been like when you found life coaching and the thought model and everything, you and I both are certified through the same school and have that in common, that we understand all of that work very well. And it was life-changing for me. I went from a place of feeling completely stuck with no happy path forward, which if you look at life, my life was great. I had no reason to feel that way, except that I completely did. I felt completely stuck and like I had no happy path forward. It's like you wake up in midlife as a woman and you've tried to make everybody else happy. And then you find out nobody is happy, including you. And you're like, oh, I was doing it wrong the whole time. Okay, let's have a refresh. Let's do a restart. So I had a bachelor's degree in psychology, and then I stayed home, raised my kids. I have two sons. And they're grown and flown now. And so as they were just getting ready to leave the nest, and I was thinking about, should I build on my bachelor's degree in psychology? What should I do? And I found life coaching, which was super amazing and completely changed my life so much that I became a certified life coach and have had the privilege of watching my clients then transform their lives right in front of my eyes. It's been so much fun. But in our industry and in the world at large, there's so much talk recently about trauma, being trauma informed. And so I started to feel like, okay, I need to figure out what this piece of it is that I need maybe more training and education around trauma. And as I was looking for different ways of doing that, there was one particular program that was more focused about nervous system resilience. And I thought, that's what I want to do, because I love coaching because it's so forward focused. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. Just where do you want to
Mhm.
go from here? Is how that's the approach we have. It's so optimistic. It's so healing. And so it's just not about you being a problem, that there's nothing wrong with you. And that's how I felt about this new way of thinking about trauma, as being more nervous system informed, and
Mm.
being able to regulate our nervous system and become resilient. And I just thought that sounded so amazing. And that nervous system regulation and resilience is what offers us the opportunity to heal emotionally and even physically. Because when we're in a dysregulated state in our nervous system, it actually tends to lead to real physical health problems.
Oh, fascinating. So actually, the body's response to trauma, to past trauma, or something that happened in the past, even if it was recent past, can actually trigger sickness in the body as a way for the body to process, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Um, wow.
We tend to get stuck in a dysregulated state. Actually, I love the way Leah Davidson describes it. I'm just going to use some of her ways of teaching it, and so I'd like to just give her credit for that. But she likes to talk about dysregulation as being assigned to three different teams. You're either in team hyper, which is like an anxious state, or you're
Hmm.
in team hypo, which is like a depressed state, or you're on team resilient, which is where you're safe and social and feeling like a home base kind of thing. When you used to play night games with your friends, and
Yeah.
there was like a home base where you were free, you were safe.
Yeah.
That's how you got back to safety. And what we want to try to do with our nervous system is create a home base of safety like that. Like when you're playing night games and you need to get back to that home base so nothing can touch you, you want to figure
Hmm.
out how to create this home base, this new safety zone inside of you, and with by befriending your nervous system, because we get stuck in that hyper state or in that hypo state. And though when we're stuck in a dysregulated state, then that is when we do start to we can start to have problems with chronic illnesses. And over years and years of dysregulation, we can have lots of other problems,
The body
disease
is
and
so
pain.
smart. Like it's literally telling you something's wrong. And then I can see myself, absolutely. And I know I've seen this in others as well. If that once they start to have what's called a chronic condition or chronic illness that came out of no, that they go to doctors, Western medicine, all kinds of stuff like that, pills. I'm not saying that sometimes that might be the right route. I mean, sometimes it might actually be your body telling you need a home base, something's happening, and it needs to be there might be a more effective way to go about healing. For instance,
Yeah,
working with someone that can help you, like a trauma informed coach.
exactly. Yeah. I
Yeah.
believe that there's so much healing that can happen without all of that other intervention. And if you need to seek medical care, please do. And if you're on
Yes.
medication, I'm not telling you to stop. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
giving you any medical advice here, but I do believe that there is so much that we can do to become more resilient and to become more healed the more that we learn about our nervous system and how to regulate it. And I don't know who said this, but somebody said, I don't do drugs because I am drugs. And I think that that's such an interesting concept. For instance, we'll use the negatives end of the spectrum for my example, at least to begin with. That do you ever run out of anger or irritation, or think of any emotion that you feel on a regular basis, that when you get a little bit annoyed or disgusted or whatever, your body doesn't ever seem to run out of those chemicals. Like the way that
Oh
we
no!
feel.
If I want to be angry about something, my body is definitely there to provide me with the chemicals needed.
Yeah. Like it doesn't seem like we ever run out. Your
No.
brain and your body, your internal organs, and the way that emotion and sensations are produced, it doesn't ever seem to run out. Like the most angry people in the world never seem to run out of
Ooh.
what is
Yeah.
required
Yeah.
to make them
In fact,
angry.
I'd say they get better and better at it.
They do. So our bodies seem to be this internal pharmacy,
I
but
love
most
this.
of us only seem to know how to have access to those negative emotions when it
Wow.
comes to that pharmacy. And so
Hmm.
what has just blown my mind in a whole new way is that we have this opportunity to befriend our nervous system and to have regulation. And when we're in a zone of safety, when we find that home base of safety and we can widen that zone and create an even broader zone of safety, then when we get dysregulated and we become a little bit anxious or we become a little bit depressed, then we know how to get back home again. We know how to go back to that home base. And if you're the only thing that makes night games interesting is like the thrill of the chase or we want to have all the whole range of emotions. We know that we're not trying
Hmm.
to get ourselves out of those, except I think the reason that we crave so much like pain relief and things is because most of us are not well regulated. We mostly don't know how to feel safe in our own bodies. And so we look for distraction. We look to food or alcohol or drugs or sex or gambling or online shopping or
What we
scrolling
call
on your
buffering a lot
phone.
of times for coaches.
All
Yeah.
of those
Uh-huh.
things.
Things that
Yeah.
we surround ourselves with in order not to feel those extreme emotion states that we don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Western medicine, like medication from a
Yep.
doctor, too, that we're always looking for these external ways of creating the pharmacy inside of us so that we can feel better, so that it's like a false sense of safety that we're
Hmm.
trying to create by going and getting some ice cream or just whatever your favorite thing is to do. Sometimes we just work ourselves to stay distracted and something. But it's so interesting to think that even in good times, like this kind of blew my mind too, this concept of I knew that we buffered away from our negative emotions by wanting to add in things to our bodies that would make us feel better, like just
Yeah.
even getting a soda or something, just to give yourself a little bit different feeling in your body. But also, a coach pointed out to me that we do it with our positive emotions too. We don't really know how to feel our positive
Oh,
emotions either.
fascinating. Tell me more about that. I just
We
might be doing it when I'm feeling positive emotions.
Well, like when we celebrate, say you go to a kid's recital or something like that, and you're like, "Good
Mhm.
job, let's all go out for ice cream." Like we don't know how
Okay.
to celebrate ourselves or celebrate other people so much with just like those genuine feelings. We also, whenever we have a celebration, what do we celebrate with?
Oh, this is true. Yeah, I should get a reward.
Yeah,
I
like
should get a yeah, I should get a treat because I just did something good.
there's always cake or there's something like even all the kids, their sports teams, there's some treat at the end.
Yep.
We
Yep.
just we're very conditioned to celebrate and to feel our positive emotions also by putting things into our bodies that
Sometimes
make us feel
overindulging. Yeah.
it makes us feel more regulated. It makes us have the sensations that come with adding something like that into your system. And so it gives us a false sense of regulation. But the amazing thing is that there are techniques and ways that we can regulate our nervous system without those external things. And so, just like you don't ever run out of anger or disgust or irritation or any of those emotions, we don't ever seem to run out of the chemicals inside of us to make those emotions. So, we must not also run out of the ways to make positive emotions. But because we're in such a dysregulated state all the time, we often don't ever get there.
Yeah, it's definitely not something that's taught, right? Like I learned early on when I was going on my own coaching journey, first for myself and then how to help others, that this is just something that isn't taught that, oh my gosh, I wish I had learned, much like learning how to do just basic meditation, like close your eyes and just be for a few minutes. It's something that I wish was taught along in kindergarten, in first
Yeah.
grade, because it's just something that helps you throughout your entire life. I feel like what you're talking about, how to go about creating a regulated space for myself that I know how to get back to, that I know where home base is, or if I need
Mhm.
to create a new one, I know how to create one. It just seems like a life skill
Yeah.
that I wish I would have known when I was young to have a more regulated life and to build on top of it as I grew and matured.
Yeah.
Um,
And we all have a body, we all have a nervous system, and
yeah,
our nervous system is the built-in wiring between our mind and our body. That's what connects the mind and the
yeah.
body together. And as we grow, we learn how to use our body. We learn how to walk. We learn how to, run and play a sport or play an instrument and read and all the things. But our nervous system, because it's not visible to us and it's not really understood by us, we don't know how to actually regulate it and use it to our advantage. We're just mostly at the effect of it.
So how
And
does someone, when you're working with someone, where do you begin? A lot of times, is somebody already in some sort of crisis, like that chronic condition, or they know something, like going to the doctor hasn't worked, the pills didn't seem to work. I've done thought work. I worked with a coach. I worked with a therapist even. Does this seem like, because the reason I'm asking this is because this seems like to me, and this is just from my opinion at the moment, again, not a medical opinion, but that as coaches, we're often taught the difference between helping a client, especially when they first come to you with their goals, and figuring out, do you need and want coaching right now, or are there some things that would be better suited to a traditional therapist for you to work through, maybe in tandem with a coach or before the coaching, in order to make both of those things more effective and get you better results, client? And I'm wondering if what you're talking about with nervous system regulation, if that's almost like a bridge between therapy and coaching, because you're dealing with past trauma or current trauma that you might be going through, that you're feeling in the body, that doesn't quite make sense from the coaching standpoint, maybe traditional coaching, thought modeling at least, and maybe isn't suited, again, my opinion, isn't suited for the traditional model of a therapist, and the tools that they use, that this might be some sort of bridge between the two. Could you talk a little bit? Agree, everything's fine. I just want to know where your thoughts are around that.
yeah, I would say that I think that there's still plenty of places where a client would want to seek a trauma-informed therapist. But through learning about the nervous system and nervous system resilience, that we as coaches can help our clients learn how to regulate their nervous system without us ever diving into the trauma.
Oh,
We can
okay.
just help them regulate themselves and help learn those skills, because that is healing in and of itself, even if you never revisit the trauma. And actually, maybe this would be
Fascinating.
a really good time to talk about trauma is what happened to you, but it's also not what happened to you. And what I mean by that is it's your response to what happened to you. And that is an oversimplification, but we'll just keep it really simple. That, for instance, like I have a sister who works in an operating room. Every time that
Yeah.
she goes to work, she is assisting with surgery. And a lot of what she does would traumatize a lot of us.
Right here, probably. Yeah.
Like me seeing the inside of
Yeah.
people's bodies, or
I
someone
have a friend
injured.
who's a trauma surgeon nurse at a flagship Seattle hospital, and he always wants to show me stuff on his phone. And I always know, no, I'm
Yeah.
not looking at it. No.
Yeah. And the
So
older
look
I
at this
get,
knee we put back
the more
together at this
squeamish.
motorcycle accident today. Just like, absolutely not.
Yeah. Because you don't want to traumatize yourself.
Thank you.
Because your nervous system is already responding and telling you, no, this is a threat. This is danger. We don't want
This
to
is
be
not for
here.
us. Yeah.
Yeah. But my sister and your friend, they routinely see things, and they at times will probably get traumatized themselves too by some of the things that they see. But some of the routine things that they see are not traumatizing to them, but they would be to
Mhm.
me.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm talking about. And I'll give you another example of how, if you'll indulge me in letting me tell a little story.
Oh, yes,
So
please.
when I was young, we used to go to the Green River Lakes in Wyoming every summer to go camping. And we would go with this other family. It was just tradition. And one time we were staying in this big army tent, like everybody in one tent. And I woke up in the middle of the night. My head is very near the tent wall. And
Mm.
I could hear this breathy,
Mm.
growling sound.
No.
And I don't know how old I was, like 6 or 8 or something.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
was frozen in fear. Like I had so much adrenaline coursing
Mhm.
through my little body. I was like shaking, but frozen. And I
Yeah.
finally decided, okay, I'm going to have to do something. I'm going to have to move so I can wake up my dad so he can save us all, because there is a bear outside our tent. And so I finally wake up my dad, and he says, "Oh, don't you remember before we went to sleep, our friend's dad, Jeff was my little friend. Jeff's dad told us Jeff snores just like a bear." There was no bear outside the tent. It was just my
Oh my
little friend
gosh.
Jeff.
But
But
your
my
body,
experience of that
yeah.
was as if there was a bear outside the tent. So your feelings are real, but they're not necessarily reality.
Oh, that's such a great example. I love that example.
And sadly, some
But it
people's
doesn't mean the
feelings,
trauma doesn't exist.
right.
It
It
still
does. I mean,
exists.
some people
Yeah.
are faced with horrific things in life. And so I don't want that example to diminish anyone who truly has a really traumatic event and that their body responds to that really traumatic event. But my body in that moment responded in a traumatized way, but I was completely safe. I was never
But I
in
think
any
what you're
danger.
saying, yeah, what you're saying is very important though. I think for us to say out loud that, because I know that I've done this to myself and I've seen clients do it too. They're like, yeah, I guess that was traumatic, but they downplay. They'll be
Mhm.
like, but I'm sure it wasn't as traumatic, whatever they'll think of in their mind that someone else had to go through or something like that, and diminish the fact that, yeah, but to you it was.
Yeah,
And that's okay. You don't have to qualify it. It was to you, that was traumatic. To that 6-year-old self, that was traumatic. Your body felt it. All those chemicals happened. That happened.
yeah,
Whether it was quote unquote real or not, open for interpretation, but your body decided it was. So we're
for
just
sure.
talking about something that is a fact at this
Yeah.
point.
So it was as if there was a bear outside my tent, the way
Yeah.
my body was reacting, even though there was not. And like you're saying, we often say, oh, I should be over this by now. I'm
Yeah.
really like, we even start to coach ourselves in front of the coach, like, oh, I shouldn't really. We try to backpedal it and be like, I know I shouldn't really complain about
Yep.
this. My life is so good. But when I thought there was a bear outside the tent, I wasn't consciously deciding whether or not to be afraid. My nervous system was in charge.
Mm-hmm.
So we have, to make it really simple, we'll call the front part of our brain where like all of our executive function, our real thinking skills happen. We'll call that the CEO. And let's call our primitive brain, that lower part of our brain, the monkey.
Yeah.
So the monkey and the CEO cannot be in charge at the same time. So the way I like to think about this is the monkey's like the bodyguard. Like we'll put the monkey in a suit and give him some sunglasses and an earpiece, and he's like the bodyguard.
I
And
feel like I'm being framed right now. Okay, go ahead.
so the monkey is the bodyguard, and the nervous system is connected directly to the monkey because our nervous system comes up through our neck and is wired into the monkey brain.
Yeah.
So the monkey, the bodyguard, and the nervous system is like the special ops. Monkey has all of these operatives out there searching for danger, and he's got to keep the CEO safe. That's their job. And so the monkey's always finding danger because that's all it's looking for. It's like a giant
It's its
scanner.
job. Yeah.
Your nervous system is always spying on you internally, and it's spying on the environment externally, and then it's spying on what's going on between us. Does this person's facial expression and body language, is it threatening to me? So our nervous system is picking up on all of those things all the time. And then when the monkey thinks it's detected a threat, it like tackles the CEO. It's like, get under the
Just like
desk.
in all those movies we see with the president and all the
Yes,
Secret Service surround them and put him to the
exactly.
ground and like guard him and yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's how I picture it. It's like the CEO gets hijacked by the monkey. The monkey's like tackles him, puts him in an SUV. Let's get you out of here. And the
I
CEO's
love
like,
that.
well, what happened? Because when you get activated, you can't think straight
Yeah.
because your CEO is now offline because the monkey's like, I've got this.
Yeah.
My
This is
job is,
absolutely something that I get because of the fact that we actually teach a module on this in our storied coaching sales course for people that sell software and technology, is that we let them know about and how to navigate around those gates. We call them gates slamming down. And we call it lizard brain, but it's the same thing. It's lower function brain. Nervous system hits lower function first. If you trigger a fear response in a sales call or something like that, that gate slams down and the lizard is in charge now. It's fight or flight time. Am I at risk? And then all that higher brain function that you talk about as CEO brain doesn't have a say anymore. Like that gate slammed down, you're not getting past it now until the cortisol levels and like everything, the adrenaline and everything goes away. And
Yeah.
so you don't want to trigger it in the first place, hopefully, in like sales situations and things like that. So it's fascinating to hear about, yeah, and this happens in all sorts of areas of our life where we have to be aware of what our nervous system is going to do because it's just the way we evolved.
Yeah.
And I also think it's interesting too, but like you said, it ties right up back of the neck into our brain. But the part of our brain that developed first as a species was monkey brain, was lizard brain, because we needed to not get eaten. That
Yeah.
was
It's there
item
to
number
protect
one.
us.
Don't get eaten.
Yeah.
And then our brain developed and grew forward for more stuff. But that thing is still there and it's not going away. And it is first in line for your nervous system.
Exactly. That's the amazing thing, is that the superhighway of the nervous system is 80% communication comes from the bottom up and 20% from the top down.
And I love that it ties into the Pareto principle. That's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we have this 80% of input from the nervous system coming up through the monkey brain. But the interesting thing is that there is no direct communication between the nervous system and your prefrontal cortex. The CEO is always the last to know.
Wow. Much like in
Because
corporate America.
I know, isn't that, it's so interesting. The whole metaphor works because the monkeys are out there running the show and the CEO is up there making decisions as long as the CEO is online. But then
Yeah.
if the monkeys can start running amok. And if the bodyguard monkey tackles the CEO and takes them offline, then the monkeys are really taking over. And
Yeah. And nothing's going to get done for your
yeah,
nervous system or for your business or for anything else.
yeah.
The
It's
thing
like,
is, like, yeah, if you stay in this state constantly without a well-regulated home base, as you said, to get to for safety and to know how to get to and know how to be in as your base, man, if you have to live outside of that for any length of time, you can see why people's bodies start to manifest chronic illnesses and
exactly.
massive anxiety and things like that. Like your body is just doesn't know what to do
Yeah.
and is trying to tell you in any way possible that the monkeys are in charge and we need to do something about it.
Yeah. And then once the nervous system gets going and it perceives a threat, then your CEO starts to worry too. Because
Mm-hmm.
once your CEO does come, your CEO is like, wait a minute, what is going on? Why am I feeling so anxious? Where did this even come from? And this comes into coaching too, because sometimes we're like, what were you thinking? And you're like, I don't know. I wasn't thinking. I don't even know. I don't
And
know
it's just
what
a
I was
response.
thinking, guys. Just suddenly I'm anxious. And that's because that is biology. You're not choosing how to respond. Your nervous system is already responding before your CEO ever knows.
So we've
And
learned, so
so,
this is so immensely helpful. We've learned so far that if we don't have, we aren't aware of, and we don't know how to build a home base, especially if we've had trauma happen to us, where we might be partially aware of it, not aware that it's affecting us as much as it is. Traditional coaching stuff that we've been doing, like maybe even making some progress, but you always seem to get stuck on this one thing. It doesn't seem to be quite fitting right. That there is this area of nervous system to address. Once we're aware of it, and then we're like, okay, how do you work with clients? What is your first step do you start immediately trying to build a home base? Or
yes.
how does that process work when you're starting to work with a client?
So actually, I'll tell you that one of the most mind blowing things about it is that, like you mentioned earlier, meditation or
Mm,
breathing and things like that. And a lot or all of the techniques that have been scientifically studied and developed they're free. They're things you can just do. None of us want to do them. And you really need to do them like hundreds of times a day to actually really get a good handle on creating your own safety, which sounds like
mm,
bad news at first. Like, I don't have time. I'm not even going to listen to her anymore because she's telling me I got to do things hundreds of times a day. You're already doing things hundreds of times a day that are dysregulating you. So
mm.
and you don't have
They've
to
just
start out
become
by,
automatic.
yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to start out by doing them hundreds of times a day, but there are techniques. But I'll tell you that the most like light bulb moment for me, and then when I've taught it to my clients, they're like, oh, nobody ever told me why we breathe. So I'm going to tell you why we breathe in order to or in order to regulate yourself, in order to create a sense of safety. And it does take practice, and there's lots of different techniques, and there's more than just breathing. But for instance, could you, using your CEO mind, can you change your heart rate or your digestion rate or your, like, any of your bodily functions? Can you just think and change those?
In the past, I would have said no, but I know that from my own experience over the last several years that some of that is actually possible. I am able to regulate heart rate purposefully, a lot of times with breathing techniques.
With breathing, yes.
Yep.
And that
Yep.
is like the access that we get to our nervous system, because the nerves come down and they wrap around your heart and around your lungs. And like I said, your nervous system is spying on you all the time. So if it perceives a threat and it kicks up your heart rate a little bit and it kicks up your respiration rate a little bit, and then it's still spying on you, and it's like, oh, suddenly our heart's a little fast, and it keeps ramping up. But if you can send it different signals, you can help it to come back down. And so one of the things that we do want to do is decrease our heart rate when we get a little bit overstimulated into that anxious state. We want to bring our heart rate back down and our respiration rate back down. And one of the ways that we can reach in and touch our nervous system, because we actually can't, is through our breath. And the purpose of it is to decrease your heart rate. And so I like to,
it's like a key. It's a key. It's our key in to the inside of our nervous system.
Yeah.
Breath.
And I like to think about it like an Etch-a-Sketch. I'm old school. Like tablets when I was a kid was Etch-a-Sketch.
Right here. Same club.
So
Team Etch-a-Sketch.
If you think about an Etch-a-Sketch, how do you write something on an Etch-a-Sketch? You have to turn the two little white knobs. Okay, for all of you who are too young to know what an Etch-a-Sketch is, you're going to have to go Google it. But it has two little white knobs, and it's this like screen that has sand and a magnet in it. And I don't even know how to tell you how an Etch-a-Sketch works, but you can't write anything on it like with a pen or anything else. You have to use these two little white handles to control what gets written on the screen. And that's how I think about our nervous system. There's not any specific little button or anything you can push. We have to find our way to connect with the nervous system, like that Etch-a-Sketch. And I was always really terrible at that. And I didn't have the patience.
It took practice, right?
To
Anyone
learn
that
and
you
practice
knew,
it.
we always knew like one kid who could draw the Godzilla or the Mona Lisa or He-Man or something, because they'd spent time practicing with those two knobs and knowing which way to go at what time in order to do it. And I would imagine that if you're trying to create that home base and you're using that key of breath, it's going to take time and practice as well.
Yeah. And I, all my life, have been the kid who like gave up on the Rubik's Cube and gave up on the Etch-a-Sketch. I'm like,
after 15 minutes, you're like, I can't do it.
Get any of this. And so I'm also the kid or the adult who's like breathing, meditation. I know it's good for me, but I'll try it here or there. And then I didn't get some lightning bolt of huge impact from it. So then I toss it as, well, maybe it works for some people, but it doesn't really work for me. But I'm telling you that we do have to practice these things and make them a little bit more routine in our lives. And then I think once they do become routine, then you do find ways to access your nervous system that are much less cumbersome. But breathing is in order to slow down your heart rate, which signals to your nervous system and to the monkey brain, actually, there's not a threat here. We don't have to fight. We don't have to flee. Everything is okay. And so the more you can do to bring your heart rate down and your respiration rate down, that is the first line of defense, the first way of creating safety for your nervous system, because it's always it's called neuroception. It's always spying on you. And so when it notices that things are starting to get different, then it can also respond and it can call off the threat. You can think about your nervous system.
Seems like such an amazing tool to have in working with a coach like me that does training on work with a lot of high performers. And so we're working on thought modeling and helping them with results and things like that. Super effective. And I like 80 to 90% of the time, but in the end, it's one tool. It's a really reliable hammer. It's a great wrench. It's a fantastic standard screwdriver, but you want to have other things in your kit.
Yeah.
And for the times when that screwdriver is not the right tool in order to get the result that you want. And it sounds like learning how to effectively, like you said, create a home base, but regulate your nervous system especially through breath. I can see all kinds of applications for that in business, in negotiations. A lot of times those can be tense, and it can trigger a fight or flight response when you're trying to negotiate well for your company or whatever you're doing. Being able to control your breath and your heart rate, so that you're making clear decisions with the executive function, the CEO part of your brain, strategically and logically, without emotion, as much emotion at least, so that you can't access those things. Like, I can see that being useful there. I can also see it being useful when you're trying to regulate emotions you might not know what to do with, or not knowing why you're having anxiety attacks. Being able to create that space so that you can have a space in order to process the trauma, even. Because when you're in those heightened states, I know for me in the past, when I had depressive episodes or anxiety attacks, like, nothing's getting processed right now. It's literally me trying to survive. And so I'm not going to be making any progress. And the more that they happen, the less time I have in between in order to figure out what's going on, which then stresses me out even more because I'm afraid about the next anxiety attack, and like, just a cycle.
Yes.
But if I had those tools, like I said, I wish they taught this stuff in first grade.
Yeah.
How to use your breath, and that you have a nervous system, and that there is a lower part of the brain, and that there is a gatekeeper monkey, and that there is a CEO function, that you can start to create a space, or know that you can, even knowing, I swear, even knowing that there is a way to start to make it better, even though it's going to be like an Etch-a-Sketch and you're going to have to take time. You're not going to get the Rubik's Cube in the first 5-10 tries. It's fine. But that there is something that will help.
Yeah.
Is just a wonderfully hopeful thing to give someone.
Yeah. And there are a lot of modalities, but really the breath is the place to start. And especially because that's something that everybody does and everybody can do wherever you're at. But I left out an important piece, actually. What I should have clarified about breathing is that when you inhale, your heart rate slightly increases when you inhale. And when you exhale, your heart rate slightly decreases when you exhale. So the way that we're using our breath to manipulate our heart rate is important. You wouldn't breathe the same if you're stuck in hyper state, an anxious state. You wouldn't breathe the same to get back to home base for that as you would if you were in a low, kind of a hypo state. Because if you're depressed, you need to add energy into your system. You need to increase your heart rate. You need to be able to add a little bit of energy so that you can get moving, so you can get going again. And that's can be really, really challenging. But when we're stuck when we're stuck in that hyper aroused state of anxiety, we need to be able to bring our heart rate down. And the way you do that is by extending your exhale longer than your inhale. And so, like, there's a lot of people who are certified in breath work now, which I'm not certified in that, but I just am learning a lot more about different types of breathing. And so, for instance, if you wanted to reduce your heart rate because you're stuck in kind of an anxious state, then you would maybe breathe in for 3 seconds and then hold your breath at the top for a few more seconds and then breathe out for maybe 7 seconds.
Yeah. And I know that this is so true, what you're saying, that there's different kinds, different flavors. And for any of you dudes who might be listening and going, oh my gosh, this has gone woo on me, I'm not sure if this is a thing, I will have you know that the Navy SEALs teach this. And they all use this. It's called box breathing. Look it up. It's exactly based off of what Kim is telling you right now. Yeah. And it's how the toughest, most badass dudes in the world, and the most stressful situations, some might argue, are able to regulate their nervous system in order to get a mission accomplished. So if they use it, maybe you should look into it.
Yeah. And it does seem a little woo at first, but it's actually science. It's how you can increase your heart rate or decrease your heart rate. And box breathing is often fairly even that's why it creates a box. And that is just a good regulatory breath. But if you really are wanting to concentrate on decreasing the energy in your system because you have too much, because you're in an anxious state, then you want to exhale longer than you inhale. And that, I was coaching somebody the other day and they're like, it's hard for me to exhale longer. And so then I would say, well, start small. Don't feel like you have to exhale twice as long. Just, like maybe inhale for 3 seconds and exhale for 4 seconds. And then see if you can work up your exhale to 5 seconds and see if you can work it up to 6 seconds. And one of the things that counting does while you're breathing is it makes your brain come back to just focus on the present moment, which is
Oh, yeah.
really the next phase actually of things too, is just being able to bring yourself back to the present moment.
And
Because
focus on what you can
anxiety,
control right now and let go of what you're worried about that you can't control. Yeah.
yeah, because anxiety mostly exists about the future and
Yeah.
depression mostly exists about the past. And so
Mhm.
when you can bring yourself back into the present, usually the present is good. At least it's just boring.
Yeah.
Like usually there's not a threat. Usually you are safe. 99.9% of the time, you can look around the room and prove to yourself, I'm safe right now.
Yeah.
And that's a really helpful thing to do, to just use your five senses to bring yourself back to the present moment and just be like, I am safe right now. I know I don't feel safe, and it's okay that I don't feel safe. It's okay that my body is having a reaction. It makes sense that it is. But also, I'm just going to prove to my brain and to my body that I am safe. And then I'm just going to breathe. I'm going to really exhale really long and slow to bring my heart rate down, to just help my nervous system get back to a place of safety.
Kim, I love talking to you. Like I said, I was selfishly wanting you to just talk more because I'm learning so much right now in every conversation I have with you. But I'm so grateful for you to even know that this exists. Some people that are listening right now might not have even taken this into account, that this was an avenue to explore. If you're
Yeah.
feeling stuck or you don't know why you're feeling the way you're feeling, if you're feeling stuck, traditional coaching, traditional therapy, maybe if someone wants to learn even more about this, now that we've gotten a little taste of, first of all, that it exists and maybe how someone might start to key into their nervous system through breath, what is the best way for people to work with you? How do you work with people? How can they contact you?
So I work with people one-on-one in coaching sessions. I am thinking of starting a group setting this
Ooh,
spring
cool.
actually to teach more of this particular topic, because I think that in a group it works really well to teach the tools and to really teach a lot of the different um, processes of things like breath work, as well as some other things to do, because we
We
all
need to
need
meet in
those
schools.
tools. Yeah. So I am going to do that this spring. I am also planning to do a couple of just webinars that your listeners could come to for free if they want to just have a little bit of a refresher about what we've talked about
Oh, very
today. And
cool.
then maybe
How
a
can they
little
get
bit.
on that kind of list?
So I'm just going to give you my personal email actually. And I just want you to
Awesome. Old school.
you can just totally email me and say, yeah, put me on the interest list and I'll send you all the information. So Kim Rees coaching at gmail.com, which is KIMREES coaching at gmail.com. So there's no E on the end of Rees, just REES. And I could also send you just a little quick guide, a little PDF about some of the things that we've discussed, as far as a quick guide to get you started to regulating your nervous system. And there's
Oh,
so
great.
much more to talk about, hours and hours that we can
I
go
know.
on.
I want to keep
So
you on forever, but I'm trying to be respectful of your time because we've hit 45 minutes already, and it just seems like it flew by.
it's so fun to talk
What?
about. I just love it.
So I will definitely put this in the show notes, everyone, as well. That email address, and then yeah, Kim, if you want to either send me that as an attachment, or even if it's just a link that they can go to and then download, like either's fine. That
Yeah.
way they can start to learn a little bit more about this and maybe attend one of those webinars or one of your classes, or maybe even coach with you one-on-one
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
they're really feeling like they
And
want
do
to
it
jump
that
on
way.
this.
Yeah, that'd be great. And you can also message me through LinkedIn, Kim Rees Coaching on LinkedIn, and
Oh,
I'm also on
great.
Instagram. You could message me there too. But I would be happy to help. And I also actually, like last May, Mental Health Awareness made a virtual event for a nursing school, and I'm going to do a lot more of that this year. I think there's a lot, and I didn't do this topic, but I think this topic is what really needs to come to businesses, to corporations,
Oh
that
yeah.
because to understand, oh, my boss is dysregulated right now. Maybe I just need to give him a minute. Or like it helps you understand yourself as well as everybody in your family and all the people that you work with and the drivers on the road. And it's really just amazing information that most of us we walk around with nervous systems and we don't know how to use them. We don't know how to use them for us. And they're using themselves against us is what it feels like. But the monkey is really on our side. And it's a beautiful thing, the way our nervous system and our brain is keeping us safe and alive. But we just want to learn how to befriend it so that we can become more resilient. We can create that safety and that home base within us and use that internal pharmacy to create good things instead of just those emotions that we don't really love to feel. So
I love it. Kim, thank you so much for being so generous with your time today. I
it's such a
appreciate it. And
privilege.
I know everyone that's listening has as well.
Thank you. It's so much a privilege for me to be here to share all of this with you. Because like I said, I can't get enough of it myself. I love to talk about it, love to share it with people, love to teach it to people, and love to watch it change people's lives. It's totally changing mine all the time.
You can tell you have a passion for it. Thank you for doing this work.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Storied Coaching with Aaron J. Jacobs. If you want more information or resources from the podcast, visit us at storiedcoaching.com.